Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to the Asia InsurTech Podcast. We are joined today by Shane D, the Chief Product Officer and an advisor at the CareVoice, and Sebastien Gaudin, the founder and CEO of the CareVoice. Shane and Sebastien, thank you both so much for coming to the show. Sebastian's been on the show, 3, 4, 5 times. Our audience knows you pretty well. But Shane, why don't you give us a little bit of your background so our audience can have some context? Sure thing.
I'm very happy to be here, firstly. I came from a technical background since the beginning of my career, and worked in advertising, startups, a bit with government back in Sydney, and then worked a few years in Hong Kong in recent before CareVoice, mostly in insurance. Spent a few years in consulting as well with in PwC, and that's when I joined CareVoice a bit after, towards the end of 2023.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of time. I think after COVID, you just forget what year it is. At least I know I do. I'm like, is it 24 now? Is it 25? I'm not really sure. Sebastien, let's start with you. Talk to me about this idea of embedded health, right? Where it fits in the value chain, why it matters so much.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be on the show. Thanks again for the invite, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah, embedded health has been, a new category we've been shaping together with various industry leaders, including large players like Swiss Re. And it's about ultimately embedding a health value proposition towards consumers and to be able to support their health and wellness journey all in one place, right? So wherever, for instance, an insurance wants to engage with their customer, they can support digitally the health journey of their customers. And why does it matter? I think we've seen this as a solid growth driver for life and health insurance. I think nowadays it's not anymore disputable that insurers see the value, aspire to deliver value around, combining digital health offering with their insurance product and moving away from just being a passive payer of claim and being upfront in supporting their customers, influencing their health journey. But then really being able to translate this intent into tangible value, this is where the critical things happen. And there are very interesting things to do, right? It starts with, customer satisfaction to drive up about their experience they may have on these embedded solutions, but also just about the NPS for their insurance brand, and then move this into higher retention of their customer, higher acquisition rate, acquiring new customers who are sensitive to this kind of value proposition, and ultimately drive more cost efficiency both on the claim side or on the operational piece. So I think that business value is what we see behind the opportunity for insurers to get into embedded health.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what that experience is like? Where is it embedded? Give me an example maybe of, because I know where embedded insurance sits, right? If I take a flight somewhere, it's embedded in my process for buying that ticket, right? But where does the embedded health sit? What does that experience look like to a consumer?
Yeah. I would say the most basic way to look at it is as an insurer, I may have an insurance customer servicing app that is here to help my customers, to check their benefits, submit their claim, and so on. Right. So you can start first to embed this kind of value proposition directly in the same app that their insurance customer may use, and actually they may start to use much more, their digital insurance, because actually you bring them something that they may use more frequently and that deliver a true value to them, especially if you are referring to life product, where you have very little reason to digitally engage with your insurance provider. So that's one. But then you can also start to imagine that all these insurers are distributing their product in different ways, right? And it could be through a bank channel partner. It could be through new digital distribution models. And then you can start to embed this kind of value proposition directly in those channels.
Can I ask you this as well? Is it possible to embed this in a retail experience where, let's say, if I'm going to buy some sneakers, right, or some Nike gear, it's likely that I'm doing that because I'm going to work out. And if I'm working out, then I'm going to be more healthy. And if I'm going to be more healthy, that has to have some relation to my insurance, I would think. Is there a way to work with retailers as well? So outside of like the health and insurance industry, to be able to embed those experiences there as well?
Yeah, so I think ultimately we see a profound transformation that may happen on the way to for insurance to engage with their customers and to indeed embed this kind of value proposition and attach their insurance to it, including in that retail. Actually, we had our own MGA that we set up some years ago, right? And
Yep.
As an MGA, it was a way also for, of course, as an MGA, he had to figure out distribution channel and different way. And with those population-specific insurance that the MGA was launching, promoting, definitely this kind of a gym chain, for instance, or of course a co-working brand and so on could be the place where you embed this kind of offering and attach an insurance. But we see now insurance are first doing the first move, being embedding this kind of value proposition inside their natural digital touch points that they may have already built, like a customer facing app.
Yep.
They start to have some important distribution channel with which they work, so then they can start to embed also that in those channels. And gradually, I think they will also come to really a deeper transformation of how to distribute this product.
Got it. Shane, talk to me a little bit about insurer needs versus the customer needs. Like, where do these things dovetail, and maybe how are they different as well?
No, absolutely. So I think linking to the prior question, I think it's related, and this has always been a dilemma when I was working and ideating on the CareVoice OS platform. So when you're designing a product, right, you have to look at who is your actual end user. And to be honest, the CareVoice OS as a product, the real end user is actually the end customer and not the insurer. But historically, even when I was working in Hong Kong with the one of the biggest Canadian insurer back then, we also worked on something very similar. And during my consulting time, we also touched upon a wellness platform, but it's more for internal employees, related to benefit management, right? So here, when I was designing, you get stuck with, because the first line of people that we try to sell to is actually the business guys in the insurance company, and they will come in and go, I want this, I want that, give me this, give me that, but they are not actually the real customers. So what we end up initially doing and ideating, and I think a lot of product has the same problem, which is you start designing things for these guys, and then when you test it out, when you start prototyping, and then when you do focus groups, the customers are like, I don't need this, right?
I don't want this.
Exactly. So that's when we really started looking at who is actually going to be using this, so that your features, right? Number one, it has to be interesting. Forget about all the really fancy requirements from the insurer that, okay, I need data collected. I want to be able to profile my customers. I want to understand the medical history or health lifestyle history about our customers. But forget about all that, because if your users don't want to use your app, you're not going to be able to get any of those information. So to your question, I think this is the biggest, starting point, which is you have to always look at the target end users of the platform. And then going back to when they start using this platform, what comes out of it as an insight? And then how do you package that insight for something that matches the check boxes of the business KPIs of the insurer client? So it's going from ground up, right? You can't go from the top down, generally.
If I may expand on what Shane says, right? I think on the insurer side, of course, you need to make sure that your platform and your solutions are going to match the requirements or what is needed to be able to embed it there in their environment, right? So that's kind of a must and table stake, right? Whatever data security, being able to, that is not sitting outside their overall process and experience. Otherwise, you are missing the point, right? You want to be able to scale with them. So that's, but where Shane is saying that for sure, in terms of what should be the end user experience, that should be driven by the end user. And on that front, what has been good is that we've been rolling out already at large scale for the past 2-3 years within insurer environment, some solution with AXA, with MetLife, with Prudential. And through that, we've been working very closely with insurers to keep upgrading those solutions to deliver value to their end users, to show high engagement, high usage. And that has been a very strong foundation for the recent platform that Shane has been behind, has been really to enhance at first the value and the experience for the end user.
Can I ask you this though as well? How do you balance this out, right? It's easy in relative terms to go visit the insurers. You mentioned AXA, you mentioned a couple of other insurers, right? It's relatively simple once you have a relationship with them to go visit them and ask them what they need or what they think they need. But then do you go to their end customers as well and say, what do you need? Because in that sense, this B2B for you is easy, right? You're just dealing with 1 or 2 people at big institutions or maybe 10 people. But on the customer side, you could be dealing with thousands or millions of people. How do you know what they actually want? And then what's the push and pull between going back to the big insurers and saying, look, we've spoken to thousands or hundreds of customers of yours, and what they really want is this kind of experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe I can start and Shane, you can go. I think you are touching one aspect which is quite interesting in terms of reality challenges with insurers, right? I think that the expectation from their customers is an unknown thing, right? And it's also unknown for us to some extent because you have as many different customers as you may have of companies and product they have and distribution they have. So I think the way to go is you need to go to the market. You need to have some assumptions, of course, based on a number of experiences that have been done, but you need to go there and then iterate, refine, upgrade according to how the end customers react to that. And this is where I was referring just before to already our experience to launching at scale a number of solutions through which we've been, by doing so, keep upgrading those solutions by asking the end user, right, getting their feedback on their app experience, on what services are valuable to them, why, seeing actual usage that are meaningful, because you see, okay, this is actually very limited use, but when they use it deeply. So it means that there is a value, right? Maybe only for 10% of the customers or 15%, but then there is a value. Some others are more used, but maybe not as deep. So it's also interesting for different reasons. So this you can only really capture it when you go to the market and roll out.
Shane, this is for you, but it sounds like there's an engagement conundrum here, right? And I've spent a lot of time talking to, and I include insurtechs in the fintech space, but to specific fintechs who've said that like their customers interact with them every day because they're banking essentially at some level, right? And whether you're buying something, selling something, getting a deposit, taking money out, you're interacting with your bank almost every day, whether you think about it or not. Is there an engagement model you think that can be learned from some of these fintechs and from some of the banks that can then bleed over into the insurance and health industry so we can understand why people want to engage so much? Like I check my balance, even on days where I kind of know like how much money is in the bank. Why am I doing that? And how can we get people to do that on the insurance and on the health side as well? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So I think I want to touch upon a very interesting principle here. So when we talk about engagement, we can just read what we're really looking at. Fundamentally, we're looking at, for an app, for example, we're looking at the DAU or the MAU, right? DAU as in daily active usage, and MAU being your monthly active users. It's a measurement of how many people, how many customers or your users of your target audience is actually using whatever it is that you have, right? So every industry is quite different. Banking apps will have a lot more usage in terms of the baseline DAUs will always be higher than an insurance app, right? Because the engagement of insurance for most servicing applications, I'm only going to open the app, for example, if it's claims. I'm only going to do it if I need to claim something. But if I'm healthy and I know good, I'm not going to look at it for sure. So the key here is actually about the problems that we're trying to solve here for insurers are twofold. One is for a lot of insurers, for all these servicing apps or servicing endpoints, it's scattered. They have different solutions some is web, some is mobile, some is legacy tech with a bad experience. And they're managing all of that, at the same time, which they know it's costly and it doesn't work. So one of the things that we are trying to do as part of our embedded solution is also trying to help them through the exercise of, you have an opportunity here to consolidate your digital experience for your customers. Even though we're doing embedded health, but what we have created as a platform actually gives them this platform for them to be able to do the converging of experience. So the first problem we are solving is actually that, right, which is experience. Now, once you have solved that and bringing everything in, going back to my first point, which is every app has its baseline. So insurers want to explore and see, is it possible for their digital endpoint, now it's consolidated, is it possible to increase from the baseline to something higher? And this is where we come in. We have engagement strategies. Really, what we are really borrowing concepts from is gamification logics from social apps or how you run any app, right? Just by applying these engagement strategies, it's guaranteed to be able to bring your baseline level up higher. It may not be a lot, but it's going to be higher. And through this increase of engagement, you have more opportunities, right? Even if it's 1%, then you have 1% more opportunity. So if you do it better, you increase it by 10%, then you have 10% more possible, things that you can do through this increase.
Can you talk a little bit more about this idea of gamification and these strategies that you use for engagement, if you don't mind, just in a little bit more specifically, so I can get a sense of, again, just not just where it fits in, but what it feels like?
Sure. I'm quite seasoned in mobile platforms. So I'll give you a few techniques, right? That's commonly used. And the most basic one, which a lot of enterprise companies that don't know, maybe because they don't have the right person hired to lead, this related digital endpoint, digital products, which is app updates. So a mobile app, with insurers, right? They take half a year or a year to build something, they launch it, everyone clap their hand and go, okay, we don't have to worry about it. And the whole app stays there for like the same for the rest of the year. But what if you look at social apps, right? 2 weeks might be a very high frequency for a digital company that's very mature and very advanced. They roll something out maybe every week even, right? Super, super fast. But at least every month, you should have an update. So the moment you put an update through, the images on the app, the news, all the textual explanations related to this update, mapped with maybe other marketing activities that you may have, will bring an inflow of users already. And this is not even touching on features, right? It's just the action of doing an update is going to bring you engagement already. So that's technique number one that I will always use. And CareVoice, we pro this part when we explain it to our clients. And number two would be, typical things like sending push notifications related to the functionalities inside. But push notifications, some people turn things off. So it has to be very personalized and related to the features that's about the user. So you can't overuse push notifications. And this is also very overlooked. Also because insurers, typically with these kind of products, they don't know how to do personalization, right? How to make sure that your push notification is sent in a related way. They always see push notifications like, oh, let's do a quick campaign and expect it to work. You can't do that, right? And then lastly,
can I give you an example of a really bad one, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
So I won't tell you who my health insurer is. As a company, they're really good. I love my health insurance. They've been very good to me. And I think part of the problem, I'm wondering how you guys deal with this, right? Because you operate in 15 countries? It's a lot of countries to operate in, different languages, different cultures and stuff like that. I live in Thailand, but my whole phone is in English.
Okay.
And every notification I get from my company is in Thai.
Okay.
And it just feels like a wasted interaction. You know what I mean? It's like if somebody knocked on my door and just started speaking to me in Thai. I wish I spoke better, but I don't. So, and they must know that, right? Because my whole phone's in English. How do you handle that? Because that's personalization, right? But that's reverse personalization. It's a bad experience. And if it was in English, I would read it because I'm interested in what my insurance company is trying to tell me.
So typically, I think I hope that app is actually in English Is it? Or is it
So I have to. So it's a really good question, but like at the beginning of the year when I had to pay my premium, I literally had to get my insurance agent on the phone to walk me through so I could find out how to switch the language and get to a place where I could actually pay my premium.
Okay.
Yeah, it took like an hour and a half to do because she was remote. She's great. She was super helpful. She shouldn't have to do this, but the way that app has been built, she literally had to stay on the phone with me.
Language
and walk me through it.
So language, I would regard that as the minimal attribute about a user that you should have.
Same.
So that any information that you send to that user should at least be in the right language. Otherwise, you might as well not send it because you just get very annoyed with, I can't read this. I don't understand.
Yeah. I think what you're doing
it's spam.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's spam.
Essentially.
Back to your example on the banking. I think insurance, you have natural reason, right, to engage with your insurance. At one point, you may need some care and be covered, right? Or if you have a life product, you may be a bit concerned about how goes your whatever monthly payment to go there, how much you're accumulating there. But as Shane said, in many cases, it's a fragmented. People are not much aware. Often they're even not aware about what app they have and so on. And there is not enough value there, so they don't have this natural, behavior. They may just call, right? And call center, it's not always a great experience, but there are some call centers that do a great job. But at the same time, it's a cost also for the insurer. So I think as soon as you start to get into embedded health, you start to bring another type of value to the customer. Then there is a good reason for them to come back to your digital offering, right? And then it's become natural to, even for some insurance aspects, that they're gonna use that digital experience, and then you start to have a very, very positive mood. Right? We have now on our solution between 30% and 70% of monthly active usage. The insurers, when usually they said they have an ambition for that, they would say, well, I don't know, 10, 15% would be great, right? Then you do at least double, and you can even do over 50% monthly active usage. So it really changed drastically the ability to create a relation with the customer and ongoingly and nurture that, because I think what Shane highlighted as basic way tactics, but it's always continuous upgrades, adjustment, new content. Feeding the different profile of customers, referring to personalization, that comes by continuous engagement techniques.
Interesting. Let's talk about this a little bit as well. Insurers have traditionally been very conservative in the installation and the application of new software stuff, right? How do you make it easy for them to actually do this embedded stuff so that it's not it's not drudgery for them, but that it's easy?
Shane, maybe you that's a good connection to how you've been designing our latest next generation CareVoice, right? Because,
yeah, and I want to say this too, because I'll give you a segue into this, because this has been interesting to me. Look, I've been following the CareVoice almost since it was founded, right? I mean, I think the first time Sebastien and I talked, it must have been like 5 or 6 years ago, so it was around for a while. But I remember when CareVoice OS first shipped, it was exciting for me because the concept was so huge. This idea that we're going to build an operating system for this thing in the same way that Windows is an operating system for a PC is something that I think about often, actually. But again, if you go back to Windows 1.0, it looked nothing like Windows today, right? So how do you continuously upgrade the operating system so that the insurers can then add new products, do this stuff, and make it easier for them in that context?
I think OS is so fundamentally, I think what we have created is not an operating system, but metaphorically, with this kind of solution, there's two parts to it, right? One is what the end user use, which is to throw out the embedded SDK into the insurers applications, for example, or if it's using an app that we built for them, bespokely built for them. But then how do you manage that? You need a complete control center, nowadays everything's on SaaS and online. So the easiest form is a web-based portal or management control center where you can use to control everything about the app, whether it's making changes to content, whether if it's for customer support to look up status information about an end user, so that if a user calls, with insurance customers, they like to call. If there's a problem, then someone is able to use the control center to fix it up. So this ability to control such an embedded solution so holistically, therefore the concept of OS, I think, fits there very, very nicely. It's not exactly in an OS, but the capability of being able to operate, and this is actually operational, right? So
right.
Being able to, it's a system to operate everything. I think it was a very good idea, and that's also one of the reasons I got to know CareVoice at the first place, and got dragged in by the idea of OS as well.
Yeah, because
Sebastien, follow up with me.
I liked it.
Follow up with me on this. Like, what's new? What's new coming out, and how does it change for the insurers actually going forward? What's new?
I think what we've seen in the market is that insurers sees value in bringing and they have been trying, right, to bring whatever different type of digital health services to their customers, but often it remains underused. It's delivered in silos outside their main customer experience. It doesn't really be able to adapt to different product scenario, different distribution channels. And so with that version, we wanted to be able to take out some of the barriers for the insurers to start with. Being able to just in 2 weeks' time, being able to be live inside their environment, so that there is no big upfront, time cost to start with, and be able to quickly bring to the market so that they can see this working, see the first response of their customers, upgrade and scale. And so that I think the major change for us, right? Before, maybe we were able to do within 2 to 4 months roughly to get live with a customer. Now, it's mostly instant, right? We can even create an experience on the fly with their branding. They can decide which journeys, which kind of digital health, value they want to bring to their customers, and assemble that, and then start even to experience themselves first. And then we can take it from there for their customers. So I think this speed and then the flexibility to easily embed inside their environment, to easily create a brand new super app for them if they don't have yet a good mature insurance servicing app. These are ways where I think insurers are going to be. We've seen it, right? They are already, because we announced this a few weeks ago. We already start to see that the insurers who had this intent, for sure, we make it easier for them to go ahead. And then we can keep upgrading, our ecosystem of technology partner that are very interesting health technology that can support the well-being or the health of people. And each time then the user, an insurer wants to ship in a new one, it's just a click and they can configure the new experience, and that's it, right? So I think that changed drastically the ability for the insurers to start.
Got it. So you may not know this, but it's been almost exactly a year since we last recorded. I was just checking on the website. We published on April 22nd, 2024. So we're right at the beginning of April. And by the time this gets published, it's probably going to be pretty close to that. Maybe before I let you guys go, talk to me about like user growth, new clients and stuff like that. Like what's new in the past year that we haven't already talked about?
Yeah, so I think when we took last year, we were completing the Series B and announcing that. Part of the funding was definitely to be able to allocate to build that's the next generation of CareVoice OS. So we've been very glad that indeed by end of last year we started to release our first version gradually and announce it in the course of Q1. So I think that was super important. What happened in the I would say past 12 months, I think first has been with our existing clients like AXA, MetLife, Prudential. We've been able finally to hit a certain scale of engaged users. It took some time to roll out these kind of solutions that we had with them inside their environment for large scale population, over millions of customers, being able to get their different distribution partners, channels, up to speed and promoting this kind of value proposition and offer. But we've seen very, very good onboarding rates. Roughly, a good benchmark would be 50% of the eligible customers onboarding on this kind of solution, 5.0, and then working a along to continuously improve this baseline usage, as Shane said. So roughly between 30 and 70% of monthly active usage. And the difference can come from either the breadth of the offering that you bring there, because depending on how much you can help your customers in different dimensions, you can drive more. But also there is always a mechanism of points and rewards. So how much also you incentivize people to come back. So you have some models that are heavily incentivized, including monetary. Some are less, but you still have quite frequent usage. So I think that has been very important for us, because to be able to scale with those existing customers, get this kind of usage, and then correlate this with impact, right? Economic impact in terms of retention, customer acquisition, satisfaction. These are very solid foundation. And this year we should hit something like 250,000 of engaged users with those customers. So I think that's a solid foundation for us. I think the other piece has been, we put more efforts on the commercial side, right, to engage more with insurers. We had a dedicated team working on that last year. We've been able to actually sign jointly with a strategic partner, Chubb. We've been starting to cooperate, about to launch live actually these days in LATAM. And expectation to do more with them across other regions. And we've seen through those commercial discussions, indeed, the need for a platform that help them to quickly feel and touch, how it could be the experience for the end user, but also, as I said, a lower barrier, lower implementation cost, and people. So now we are in the midst of getting this out and getting more insurers working with us. We look forward to help the industry transform how life and health products and experience is delivered for more value.
Awesome. Shane, before I let both of you go, talk to me a little bit about the upcoming roadmap. What are we expecting from the CareVoice going forward?
Good question. I think the biggest thing is, sometimes we have to ride wave of what's in trend. So you can take a big guess of what's coming. So we're talking about experience. So the two main, so again, going back to, it needs to be for the user, right? So for the end user, the two things that we're really trying to do is, one is experience, right? How do we make sure that the experience is something that the user wants to actually use? It doesn't have to be 100% of everybody, but as long as some portion of that group of users want to use it, then whatever we have put through as part of an experience upgrade means it has succeeded. And the other part is, and that automatically gives you engagement, right? So around experience, like how do we make the experience better so that it's more automated, so it's more personalized, so that it doesn't need us, for example, to spend a lot of effort to write content, for example, right? And the technology that we want to use and the availability of that technology today, I think can absolutely help us enhance this part quite greatly.
Yeah, I mean, we've published a bunch of episodes recently on one of my other shows about artificial intelligence, generative AI,
yes,
and even general AI and where it fits into all of these topics. Maybe in 6 months or so, when you roll out some of this stuff, we can get you all back on the show to talk about like where it actually fits into this part of the value chain. Because you're right, and I think I'll leave you with this. One of the things that people have told me over time is that they do want to automate things, but they still want to use the term or phrase humans in the loop, right? So they can figure out exactly what is going out,
yes,
and make sure that it's not just, operating autonomously without anybody checking it. But I can see that kind of stuff coming. Anyway, you guys have been awesome. I really appreciate your time today. Shane D, Chief Product Officer and Advisor at the CareVoice, and Sebastien Gaudin, the founder and CEO of the CareVoice. You guys are welcome back anytime. I've said that every single time you've been on the show, and you keep coming back. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this.